always look forward to Sunday morning. This is such a nice way to start the week, as it were, and a wonderful place to be with people who are accepting. I hadn't seen the order of service until I got here, and it says, Perspectives on Life as a Heretic. Well, I guess heretic will do. We are all atheists and going to talk about being atheists. And one of the marvelous things about a UU church is that it's okay for atheists to be a part of it as we talk to each other and learn from each other in all the ways that we do. So welcome. I will try to be funny. I'm sure that my partners will try to be funny too, as well as hopefully telling you something for you to think about that you hadn't learned before. And Suzanne has some announcements to make.
Yeah, David and I are good partners because neither one of us, for example, looks at this ahead of time. So we don't say, what's wrong with you? Aren't you prepared? Well, sort of, I can read. Announcements are in your order of service, and I checked with Brad about what I ought to emphasize. Sponsor of Family Promise, Family for the Holidays. See Michelle. Michelle is, where's Michelle? Probably in the kitchen. There she is. Yes, anyway, she has the list of what things for, it's a family of 5 children, and a couple of them have been picked up, but there's 2 or 3 kids left if you are willing to sponsor by bringing gifts for them. The Hanging of the Greens party after the church on the 15th. By all means, come and do that, and that's when gifts for Family Promise will be wrapped. Let's see. Which one is it? The anti-racist workshop is going to wind up, well, it's not winding up today. Anyway, it's today. And it's going to be on Zoom. So if you haven't gotten the Zoom link, Brad can give it to you. It meets today at 2 o'clock. And other than that, look in the order of service. Are there other announcements that I'm missing? Yetta.
Yes, please bring your plastics form, and we'll do the drawing next week, if Chris is willing to let us do it.
If Chris is willing.
It's his service next week.
Yes, I'm ready.
Okay, good.
Suzanne, there is no time here for the anti-racist workshop. I thought it was
12:30.
I thought it was 12:30.
It says 12:30.
Oh, it's on here twice. Here first.
Yeah, it's under announcements. There are a lot of them, so
Sorry. Okay.
yes, if you can read them.
Oh, yes.
Okay, and we're now going to light the chalice, right? So this gets a little more serious. My chalice reading is from Albert Einstein. Some people cherry-picked Einstein and tried to say, oh, yes, he believed in God. Well, what he said was, if something is in me which can be called religious, then it's the unbounded admiration for the structure of the world, insofar as our science can reveal it.
Pretend those are lit, because I didn't manage to light them very well. I was thinking about the 2 candles that we light, one for some good thing that has happened and another for some bad thing that's happened. And it just fit into at least what I have to say later on this morning so well. And it's such a part of the Unitarian Church again. that this is a way in which we recognize the world, that has all those things that we must deal with. And now if you'll just relax and take a deep breath, just sit back and calm yourself and be comfortable and listen. So the plan for this morning is that the three of us will speak from our different positions. I'm a philosopher by trade, and Suzanne is a psychologist by trade, and that is a scientist by trade. And we each have different reasons for being one. And so I tried to think about what, as a philosopher, I could say. And the right way to begin, I borrowed from a book that I got out of the library recently, very nicely, that says, "Philosophy Bites." Very nice ambiguity there. Bites as both a noun and as a verb, the way in which it works. So here's where I want to begin. We are all born into, and we all live in, a world that we didn't make. And somehow we have to come to terms with that. This is a world that can be understood in very many ways. There is no question that historically, human beings have used some kind of god or gods to try to order, to make sense out of, to understand the world that they find themselves into, and tend to perceive it in a way that fits with the way in which the god or the gods work. Well, I don't. I don't believe in a god or the gods or supernatural beings of any kind. And I was asked one time by actually the girlfriend of my nephew why I was an atheist. She was a good Roman Catholic, and she was just kind of astonished by that. And I don't remember what I said, but what I do remember is I said something really stupid. I was just trying to be clever and smart and, use big words and so on. And what I had to say didn't make much sense at all, but at least it taught me, as I hope such things regularly teach us, to think about why it was that I didn't believe in God. And my answer really is quite simple. It's called the problem of evil. The problem of evil was first invented about 2,500 years ago in Greece. And it's very simple, really. It just says, you cannot have a God who is all-powerful, who does whatever he wants, who is all good. Everything he wants is good, particularly for his creation, and evil to also exist. One of those has to be false, maybe more than one of them. By evil is meant something quite clear. It is not simply suffering, because as we all know, some suffering is not a bad thing. If you've ever worked out at the gym and felt you needed to go a little longer and wanted to stop, or you wanted to be a good piano player and you did octaves until they bored you to death, or all the other kinds of things that we have to go through to get to a point that is better than the one we started from. Some suffering often happens. What evil is senseless suffering, unjustified suffering, suffering to those who do not deserve it and can't do anything about it, meaningless suffering. That kind of suffering is inconsistent with a God who is all-powerful and all-good. Now, if I just stopped there, most of you would have noted, well, that doesn't prove the non-existence of all gods. It just proves, if it's right, the non-existence of a God who is all-powerful and all-good. And as I have looked at this over the years, one of the things that I have come more and more to see around me is how prevalent evil is. Not just how much suffering there is, but how much meaningless, pointless, undeserved suffering there is. There's also lots of good stuff. That's why I like the good candle and the bad candle. But there's a lot of real evil, undeserved, unjustified, meaningless, senseless suffering. So it isn't just an all-powerful and an all-good God. It's the gods who are really on our side, who are with us, who are supporting us in what we want. And I don't see that either. And that's why I'm an atheist. Let me talk a little bit about the kind of meaningless, senseless, purposeless suffering that I see. I gave a sermon quite a number of years ago that was about the idea that God doesn't give us a problem that we can't deal with. And I said basically, nonsense. We do have problems that we can't deal with. And if God only gave us problems that we could deal with, then anybody who failed to deal with them, it was their fault. And how unfair this is. Think for yourself. Think about other people that you know. What happens is you're good at some things and you're not very good at other things. The things that you're good at, you solve and you move on. The things that you're not good at, just keep coming back and come back. You want an example? Somebody who gets married 5 times and divorces 5 times because each choice is a bad choice. The person who goes from church to church to church and none of them are satisfactory for them. Think of the example that works for you. If there is anybody here who thinks that they are good at anything, then please let me look at you, because I don't believe you. Nobody is good at everything. Everybody has weaknesses. And it is the weaknesses, the things that we don't do very well, that just keep coming back and back and back because we don't deal with them very well. One of the other problems with the idea that somehow suffering can be explained because people, through their free will, are able to overcome it. How about people who suffer from clinical depression? People who suffer from anxiety, people who suffer from endless loneliness, people who screw up relationships that they're in over and over again because the kind of weakness they have just doesn't enable them to deal with the problems that in all relationships come up. I certainly don't mean that all life is bad. It's not. I live a very nice and lucky life. But the things that cause us so much pain are the things that we're not good at, and everybody is not good at something. The other thing that's really bad about it is, if free will is supposed to be, and free will is supposed to be a good thing, not only are lots of people, through addictions, through depression, through anxiety, not able to deal with strange and difficult kinds of problems, they're the ones who get blamed for it. Somehow it's their fault that they had become, that they had learned how to be weak in some way. I ask you here to think about your own weaknesses. Everybody has different ones. Everybody is unsuccessful in one way or another. And those are the ones that come to bite you because they keep coming up and up and up. Back when the problem of evil was first raised, human beings made a really big gap generally between human beings and other animals. We tend, particularly in the UU Church, to not make that big a distinction. If you begin to recognize how much human beings senselessly and uncontrollably suffer, think how hard it is for the other animals with whom we share the world. I went up to the computer and looked for my favorite example. Some people may be familiar with. It's called Toxoplasmic gondii. It is a parasite that gets into the brain of a mouse, that when it gets into the brain, the mouse is no longer afraid of cats, so that the virus can then reproduce in the only way it can, in the gut of a cat. This is a perfect example of the kind of self-destructive nature that is so much a part of the world. When I used to begin my world religion course, I would begin the first day with, life is hard, it's difficult, problems arise, knowledge is scarce, and the knowledge we most need is the knowledge that it's hardest to recognize and hardest to see. And saddest of all, we are almost always our own worst enemies. Not just each other's enemies, our own worst enemies. Why are you depressed? Why are you lonely? Why are you anxious? Why do you get addicted? Not so much because of what other people do, because of what you do. And the addictions that we're most vulnerable are the ones that keep coming up and come up and come up. All I ask you to do here is to think how difficult life is and how ill-made we are to deal with most of it. And this brings me to why I wanted to give this talk to you all. UUs, if they are looking for, as we are, solutions to some of the reasons why life is so hard, we tend to look to each other and other people, not a supernatural being in the skies. We know that we're the ones that have to solve these things. And the only way we can solve them is by first recognizing how bad we are at solving things and how we can turn to others for help. Human beings are really strange. We are social animals, and we look to each other for help and aid. We're also very competitive, and we're trying to beat other people to get to the not sufficient kinds of things in the world. And these two factors, our capacity to cooperate and our desire to compete, are so often a constant source of conflict. All we need to do is to recognize that those for whom life is hardest are those who have the hardest times doing these sorts of things. And how awful it is to blame them and to think there is some God who blames them properly as well, instead to figure out how we can work them. I joined this church and have been a member for about 12 years now. And one of the reasons I wanted to come was that I saw this was a group of intelligent, thoughtful, decent people who recognized that if you wanted to solve the problems of the world, turn to other people, turn to yourself. Don't turn to some God who's supposed to do it for you or will blame you if you do it badly. That's why I don't believe in such gods. I don't believe in fairies either, by the way, or unicorns and so on. Not so nice kinds of supernatural beings out there. But I particularly don't believe in one that makes life even more impossible than it already is. to demand of those who are most unable to deal with these issues to do things that they simply cannot do and to blame themselves when they fail. That is a really crummy way of living and a crummy way of putting a community of loving people together. I've already talked too long. I will turn it over to number 2. Oh, now it's time to sing. Yes. Yetta picked a great song for us to sing.
The choir could please come up.
We're just standing down here.
Yeah, you can stand up there. Testing. Okay. Put it closer to you. More to me. This way. I'm not supposed to say that into the microphone.
I shouldn't be by now, but I am still astounded at how much malevolence is directed toward the term atheism. No, it just means non-theistic, non-theistic, okay? Like humanism, philosophical naturalism. This isn't an antagonistic worldview. It's simply one that doesn't include a supernatural being or force. It's my worldview. But what does that mean to me as a psychologist? What needs does it meet? What does it not satisfy? First, the bad news. Maybe after David, I don't need to get too much more bad news. But anyway, first the bad news, get it out of the way. What does it not offer? Well, we're mammals, dependent from birth on others for food and safety. It's natural to look for someone or something to provide that, even once we're grown. Many of us mammals attach to powerful figures. The leader of the wolf pack, the elephant matriarch, the big silverback gorilla, depending on your species. For us humans, the tribal leader, the king, the priest or shaman. Now, since I'm a human, I'm intelligent and imaginative, and I can imagine a powerful god or gods to turn to instead for comfort, for security. And it's kind of interesting, there is some decent psychological data that says for religious people, their view of what God is can be predicted from the kind of parenting they had. People who had warm, basically supportive parents tend to imagine God is benevolent, warm, supportive. People who had harsh, demanding parents will create a harsh, demanding God. I'm thinking of you, Old Testament, lots of places. It's there. It makes sense because since we're creating it, it's what feels familiar. In a sense, secure, even if it's harsh and demanding. Well, maybe I can meet the demands, and that will be good, and it's familiar. Also, we are observant enough to notice that everyone will die, those we love, and eventually us. I don't like that. Do you? It makes us sad or angry and eager to fasten onto anything contradictory. For instance, a belief that the spirits of our dead are literally right around us. I mean, I talk to my mother in my head. I talk to my father. Sometimes it's to say, "Shut up, Dad." But, that's different. I don't believe they are literally around, even though I sometimes wish they were. Also, to fasten with enthusiasm on anything which promises immortality of some sort, or at least another 100 years. A purely naturalistic cosmology doesn't provide for those things. It says there's no grand plan, no benevolent or malevolent being, no overseer, no literal immortality. So what does it offer? What's the good news? You have to think about that. Well, it offers the tranquility of accepting what is, rather than, for example, railing against what should be or worrying about what may be. Also, it lets us give unstinting credit to those people and things which have nourished or protected us. It's not God that did that. It's Mom. It's the social organization. It's the wider natural world that nurtures, protects us. And, most fun, it leaves us free to celebrate the natural miracles around us. Love for others, their love for us. Gratitude that we are, as Kurt Vonnegut wrote, part of the mud that got to sit up and take a look around. Isn't that a lovely idea? We get to see, we get to think about it, we get to see and perceive. And awe and joy, as celebrated memorably by many. Carl Sagan's Cosmos stands out to me, the comprehensiveness of it and the sheer, isn't this wonderful, isn't this enough? It's glorious. And I love this one. Vincent van Gogh, who wrote, "At times I have a terrible need, shall I say the word, of religion. Then I go out at night and paint the stars." Finally, this gives us freedom to question anything, including anything I've just said. Feel free.
We will now stand and sing A Fire Mist and a Planet, which will have words up here. Okay, Gloria, what number is it? Number 343. Thank you. The choir can come up. Yeah, I'm going to put a little introduction here. I can't do it. I think it's my turn now.
And you probably need this higher than I had it.
Okay, thank you. I put ecologist because that's what my particular science is, and I recognize that psychologists are also scientists.
You probably need to get closer to the mic.
Yeah. We are actually all scientists, but as Suzanne pointed out, atheists are probably one of the most hated groups in society. I recently was shopping for St. Nicholas Day, and I found a not-so-funny t-shirt for sale on Etsy that says, "St. Nicholas, giving presents and punching heretics." So I lodged a complaint with them. But so many of us are afraid to come out. We adopt less loaded labels like humanist or agnostic. But for me, atheism isn't really a choice. It's just that I haven't experienced anything that provides me with any proof that are supernatural beings. I haven't seen any miracles, so it's just a natural conclusion. The philosopher Bertrand Russell proposed that the burden of proof should be on those that propose that there are supernatural ideas. And he asked, what's the difference between the non-existence of a deity and the existence of a deity that you can't detect? So obviously it's pretty hard to prove that there's a deity that you can't detect. So some satirists started a new religion that we might want to bring into the fold of Unitarianism. They worship the invisible flying spaghetti monster. So these Pastafarians believe that the flying spaghetti monster created the universe after a night of heavy drinking. And as I said, it's invisible, so you won't be able to detect it. So if the burden of proof were on me, how would I prove that this God did not exist? For most of us, it's more important to fit in with society than to be honest. We need to stay in relationship with other people. And to do that, we have to behave differently and adapt to their worldviews. So how many times have you avoided standing up for your beliefs? And I think of Judas, when I think of how many times have I failed to point out that I don't believe in a God. We're really good at pretending and saying what people expect us to do. Like if I'm in line at the grocery store and somebody says to me, "Blessed day," it would just not be very, I should accept that as a kind offering. Is it worth making them feel uncomfortable? I'm probably never going to see them again. But the response I like best is, "May the flying spaghetti monster touch you with his noodly appendage." So the next time you're in line, you might think about saying that. But why do we? I think it's interesting as a scientist to think about why humans and maybe other animals believe in the supernatural. How did that evolve? Is there a fitness? You know what fitness is? Like creating more offspring or gaining more resources so that you can create more offspring. Well, at the individual level, people claiming supernatural power or a special connection with God would gain more resources in a lot of cases and be more likely to mate and produce more children. So it could be, I don't know if I'd say it's heritable per se, but it could have some fitness advantage. The belief in a God can definitely help people get through hard times, and it can even help us to fight addiction. And that's powerful stuff, and I would not want to take that away from anyone. It kind of reminds me of imaginary numbers in math. I don't know how many of you have worked with them in complex theory, but they have a lot of practical value to solve everyday problems, even though they go outside of the box of our intuition for 3D space and time. So they're kind of a tool that works really well. At the societal level, that's at the individual level. At the societal level, there was a recent article in the journal Science that suggested that the belief in a God watching us led to the cohesion in larger societies. So in smaller societies, there tended to be like the pantheon of gods that were, for example, in Greek society. But in larger societies that have a belief in perhaps in one God, it allowed them to grow a moralistic God by following those moral rules. But I'll tell you a secret. We listen to the song From a Distance, which talks about God watching you. And the secret is that even atheists, some of us, want to feel that someone is watching us. I take banjo lessons because it's not enough for me to enjoy playing. I need to feel like my progress matters to someone else. I need to hold myself accountable. I need somebody to hold me accountable besides just myself. Otherwise, I know I would just slack off, and you guys would probably benefit from that, but regardless. So I don't begrudge others the beliefs that they need to get through life. But imagine a no-faith healing ceremony where we walk away with enough faith in ourselves and in this community to remain and continue unwatched, except by Google, Facebook, the Chinese. The point is, together, you are enough.
Yes, justice and generosity opportunities. Do you want to take care of that? Yes, and then I'll do the benediction.
Okay. Oh, I've got the benediction.
Oh, you got the benediction?
Remember?
Oh, that's right, good. You can see how organized we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Justice and generosity. Probably most of you could say this announcement better than I can, because I tend to be a terrible person for details. But at the back of the sanctuary, there are 2 boxes. One is for being generous to ourselves. We need this place. We need the people who work here. That all takes money. And the other is for a group called Awesome Now. And we've had presentations on what that does. And you can donate to one or both of them. Can you add anything? I'm floundering.
Nope, you're doing fine.
Okay.
Sure, everybody gets up and gets a chance to hold hands if they want to.
I'm sorry?
You might say something about the people online.
Oh, yeah, sorry. The people online can use, okay, you do this.
First of all, we welcome the people who are joining us online, and if you wish to contribute, there is a QR code that should be on your screen at some point.
Okay, now one of my favorite parts of the service. You're invited to stand, and if you'd like to hold hands. I'm so glad COVID is over. I mean, major COVID is over, so we can do this. For the benediction, let's see, I want to make sure I get this right. From that master of metaphor, Woody Allen. Reality is good because it is the only place you can buy a hamburger. Go in peace.